We're lucky enough to be joined by Erich Pratt this morning, Senior Vice President for Gun Owners of America. Gunowners.org is the website. Erich, good morning.
Good morning to you, Mark. How are you?
I'm doing all right. It's great to get you back on here. I hate that it's under these circumstances. I was truly hopeful that SCOTUS would finally put its foot down and clarify Heller in this New York State Rifle Association lawsuit against New York. But they didn't. They failed on basically a 5-3-1 decision.
Yeah, it was a big letdown. We obviously, those who favor gun rights had huge expectations going into this case. And you might say we got half a loaf. I mean, you do have several justices, and especially the two new ones that President Trump has put on, Cavanaugh and Gorsuch. Basically expressing concern that lower courts are not applying the Heller and McDonald decisions faithfully and properly, and
right.
So that they're looking forward to taking a Second Amendment case. They're begging for this, and that's a good sign. And let's not forget that as for the gun owners of New York City, they mostly won their case already. I mean, they can now, because New York City changed their laws, they can take their guns out of their homes to ranges outside of the city, to second homes in upper state New York. And the city said that when they're doing that, they can stop for coffee and things like that, stop at the gas station. So they've conceded some of these things. I think what it is, though, is a reminder to all of us that we can't ultimately put our hope in the courts. The legislative branch, the Congress, is the elected branch of our government, and we cannot get passive. We cannot rest on our laurels. We have to remain active, because you can't depend on people, like a John Roberts, who have a full-time appointment, and he, comes in being acclaimed as being a conservative, but now starts, swinging back and forth. In the legislature, he'd be kicked out of office. Well,
right.
With lifetime appointments, you just can't put your hope in the courts.
Yeah. No, I agree completely. I was also a little disappointed in Justice Kavanaugh. So I mentioned this was a 5-3-1 decision. Justice Kavanaugh agreed with declaring this law moot and not moving forward, but he also agreed with Justice Alito and Justice Thomas that we need a decision by this court to lay down how far some of these left-wingers can go in impeding your Second Amendment rights. They would never stand for that if it came to the First Amendment or any other amendment.
No, they wouldn't. And that's what's outrageous about this. I mean, the original New York City law said you couldn't take your gun out of the city to a second home in upper state New York. Basically, you could only take it out of your home to 7 ranges in the city. I mean, imagine having only 7 places in your town where you're allowed to exercise your First Amendment rights. Right. I mean, that would be outrageous. And here, basically, the court got played because, gun rights groups challenged these restrictions, and New York City fought back to preserve their anti-gun law. And at each level of the legal system, they challenged those of us who were favoring freedom. They were forcing gun groups like ours, in total to spend hundreds of thousands of dollars in challenging New York City. But only after the Supreme Court said that they would take up the case, only then did New York City change its law and backtrack so gun owners can legally take their guns out of the city. It's a sad thing, but ultimately the big issue in this case is the standard that judges are going to use to examine laws like New York City's. The Court of Appeals ruled in favor of New York City, and their position was that judges can apply what's known as intermediate scrutiny and engage in interest balancing. Basically, that means you can throw the shall not be infringed out the window, because
right.
Interest balancing means judges will get to decide if other interests, like, let's say, safety, are important enough to override your rights. And that's, a loophole big enough you can drive a truck through.
Boy, well said. Erich Pratt, my guest, Senior Vice President for Gun Owners of America. I would encourage people to go to their website, gunowners.org. If you're not already a member, at least sign up and get updates on the battles they're waging on your behalf in cases like this around the country. And we really appreciate you keeping up the good fight, Erich. Thank you for that.
You're welcome. Thanks for having me, Mark.
Yeah, we'll have you on again soon. Thank you. Again, gunowners.org is the website, and they really just done a fantastic job